My name is Dr. Jessica Kane, former lead physicist for Project Blackwater. What I'm about to tell you violates every non-disclosure agreement I've ever signed. But in 16 hours, they're planning to activate the black wave transmitter again. And this time, they're targeting a major population center. Someone has to know the truth about what happened in Nevada 3 years ago. The Department of Defense contacted me about developing non-lethal crowd control weapons. The brief was simple. Create an energy weapon that could disperse hostile crowds without permanent damage. The technology seemed promising. Focused microwave radiation that would create intense heat sensation on human skin. Uncomfortable but harmless. We called it the black wave system. The name came from the wavelength we were using. Electromagnetic radiation in a frequency band that didn't exist on any civilian spectrum analyzer. We had to invent entirely new equipment just to measure it. The first tests were conducted on volunteer subjects. Military personnel who had signed comprehensive waivers. The results were exactly what we expected. Exposure to the black wave created intense burning sensations. Subjects would retreat immediately. No lasting damage. No permanent effects. It's the perfect non-lethal weapon. But then we scaled up the power. The Pentagon wanted to know the weapons. Maximum effective range. How many people could it affect simultaneously? What would happen with prolonged exposure? These weren't unreasonable questions for a weapons system. We designed larger transmitters, more powerful generators, extended exposure protocols. That's when we discovered something that shouldn't have been possible during our first high-power test, conducted on a mock village populated with ballistic gelatin dummies. Something went wrong. The black wave didn't just create heat sensations, it actually began to affect the molecular structure of organic materials. The gelatin dummies started to ... liquefy ... At first, we thought it was a calibration error. Too much power. Wrong frequency. But when we examined the affected materials under microscopic analysis, we found something terrifying. The cellular structure hadn't been burned or cooked. It had been fundamentally altered at the atomic level. The black wave was somehow disrupting the electromagnetic bonds that hold organic molecules together. Not through heat, not through radiation damage, through some mechanism that our current understanding of physics couldn't explain. Dr. Marcus Webb, our molecular physicist, theorized that we had accidentally discovered a form of energy that operated outside normal electromagnetic theory. The black wave wasn't just radiation. It was something that existed in what he called subspace frequencies. Wavelengths that technically didn't exist in our three-dimensional reality. The military was fascinated. A weapon that could dissolve organic matter while leaving inorganic structures completely untouched. The applications were obvious, and terrifying. Against my strongest objections, they authorized live testing. The test subjects were death row inmates who had volunteered for the program in exchange for commuted sentences. The protocol called for brief exposures, millisecond pulses at gradually increasing power levels. We would monitor their vital signs, Stop immediately if any permanent damage occurred. The first subject was exposed to a 3-millisecond pulse at minimum power. He reported intense heat sensation across his exposed skin. No lasting effects. Exactly what we expected. The second pulse lasted 5 milliseconds at slightly higher power. The subject screamed. His skin showed visible reddening. But again, no permanent damage. The effects faded within hours. Then we tried 10 milliseconds at moderate power. The subject's scream cut off abruptly. Not because he stopped feeling pain, but because his vocal cords had begun to dissolve. The black wave had somehow targeted his organic tissue while leaving his clothing, his restraints, even his dental fillings completely untouched. Within 30 seconds, his skin had taken on a translucent quality. We could see his circulatory system, his muscle tissue, his organs, not through burning or cooking. The cellular walls were simply losing cohesion, becoming liquid while somehow maintaining their basic shape. Dr. Webb was shouting to shut down the transmitter. But the military observers wanted to see the full effect, to understand exactly what we had created. The test continued for a full minute. By the end, the subject was still alive, still conscious. But his body had become something that belonged in a nightmare. His skin had the consistency of thick liquid. His muscles flowed like gel. Yet somehow, impossibly, he was still trying to speak, trying to beg us to make it stop. The worst part was that he seemed to be aware of what was happening to him. The black wave didn't affect neural tissue the same way it affected other organic matter. His brain remained intact while his body dissolved around it. We terminated the test immediately, administered massive doses of morphine. The subject died within minutes, not from pain, but from systemic organ failure, as his liquefied tissues could no longer maintain basic biological functions. The autopsy revealed something even more disturbing. The cellular breakdown wasn't random. It followed specific patterns, as if the black wave was somehow programmed to target certain types of biological structures. Skin first, then muscle tissue, then organs, but never the nervous system. It was designed to keep the subject conscious throughout. The entire process. Dr. Webb's analysis suggested that we had stumbled onto a form of energy that existed partially outside our normal space-time. The black wave wasn't just electromagnetic radiation. It was something that operated on quantum levels we barely understood. Something that could selectively target specific molecular bonds while leaving others untouched. The military immediately classified the entire program at the highest possible level. Project Blackwater became a special access program. Only 12 people in the entire government knew it existed. And we were all bound by national security oaths that carried life sentences for violation. But they didn't stop the research. Over the next 18 months, we conducted 47 more tests, each one more horrific than the last. We learned that the black wave could be tuned to target specific types of organic matter. We could dissolve skin while leaving muscle intact, dissolve muscle while leaving bone untouched. We could even target specific organs. The applications were obvious. Enhanced interrogation techniques, assassination methods that left no traceable evidence, weapons that could kill an enemy while leaving their equipment completely functional. But the military wanted more. They wanted to know if the Black Wave could be scaled up. Could we target entire buildings? Entire city blocks? What would happen if we built a transmitter powerful enough to affect thousands of people simultaneously? That's when I tried to quit the program. My resignation was denied. National security implications. Too much classified knowledge. I was essentially a prisoner of the project, forced to continue research that violated every ethical principle I had ever held. The final test was conducted 6 months ago. A transmitter, targeting a small town in Nevada that had been evacuated for nuclear testing decades earlier. Population 0, but filled with laboratory animals to test the weapons effects on living creatures. The results exceeded even the military's darkest expectations. The Black Wave pulse lasted exactly 30 seconds. In that time, every organic creature within a 5-mile radius began to liquefy. Birds fell from the sky as their cellular structure dissolved. Insects became puddles of biological matter. Even bacteria in the soil were affected. But the most terrifying part was the precision. The Black Wave had somehow been programmed to distinguish between different types of organic matter. It targeted animal life preferentially. Plant life was affected, but survived. The weapon could somehow recognize consciousness. The cleanup took 3 months. And during that cleanup, we made a discovery that changed everything. The Black Wave effects weren't temporary. The affected area had become what Dr. Webb called a dead zone. Not radioactive, not contaminated in any conventional sense. But organic matter continued to break down for weeks after the initial exposure. The weapon had somehow altered the fundamental properties of space itself. Any living creature that entered the affected area would begin to dissolve within minutes. The Black Wave had created a permanent field of molecular instability. A zone where the normal laws of biology simply didn't apply. That's when I realized what the military was really planning. They weren't developing a crowd control weapon. They were creating a doomsday device. A weapon that could render entire regions uninhabitable to human life while leaving infrastructure completely intact. The perfect tool for territorial conquest. Yesterday, I received word that the final Black Wave transmitter has been completed. Portable, powerful enough to affect a 20-mile radius. And in 16 hours, they're planning to conduct the first operational test. The target is a city of 200,000 people. The official cover story will be a chemical spill, an industrial accident. The area will be evacuated within hours of the test. But the Black Wave field will remain active for decades. They're going to create a dead zone in the heart of American territory. Proof of concept for a weapon that could reshape global politics overnight. I can't let that happen. In 3 hours, I'm going to destroy the transmitter, the security systems, the research data, everything. It will cost me my life. The moment I move against the project, Automated systems will alert military security, will be shot as a traitor. Before I can escape. But maybe, if I'm successful, this recording will survive. Maybe someone will understand what we created in those underground laboratories. Maybe someone will ensure that the Black Wave technology never sees operational deployment. My name is Dr. Jessica Kane. I helped create a weapon that violates every principle of human decency. And in 2 hours and 37 minutes, I'm going to make sure it dies with me. If you're hearing this recording, it means I succeeded. The Black Wave transmitter has been destroyed. The research data has been wiped. But somewhere, in classified government archives, backup files probably still exist. Watch for news reports of industrial accidents that create permanent dead zones. Be suspicious of chemical spills that require decades-long evacuations. And remember that sometimes the most dangerous weapons are the ones that governments claim don't exist. The Black Wave is real. And even though I'm about to destroy this particular project, the fundamental research will continue. In other laboratories, under other names, with other scientists who may not have the conscience to stop what they're creating. Energy that melts skin. Technology that dissolves human beings while leaving their consciousness intact. Weapons that can create permanent dead zones where life itself becomes impossible. This is what happens when scientific curiosity combines with military ambition. This is what happens when we push the boundaries of physics without considering the moral implications. My name is Dr. Jessica Kane, and I'm about to commit treason to save humanity from its own worst impulses. Timer set. Explosives armed. In exactly 90 seconds, Project Blackwater ends forever. May God forgive us all for what we almost unleashed upon the world.